Greetings, everyone. I suspect this is going to be a very long one. Welcome to my new subscribers. And to those of you who have been with me from the beginning, thank you for your continued support. Blessings to you all. Welcome to Jenniren's class. Today, let's say this is History 101, subtitled Transformation and Change. As I move in a sort of new direction, not focusing so much on the problems, but understanding who we are as a people. And when I say as a people, I know there are other persons here who are not African or don't consider themselves to be African, even if they're dark skinned like me. But welcome. As I grow and become more enlightened, I might be able to impart some things to you. Some of you will agree, some of you will disagree. That is the nature of the spirit, because we're called to one greatness, but we take different directions, different avenues to this. One truth, not based on religiosity, but one understanding that ultimately two becomes one, and we are centered in that oneness. Today, I'm talking about African people's history, and I'm using the word African as a kind of stepping stone, because that word Africa and African is now redefined for me. But I'm going to start by telling you that when I was a little girl, couldn't have been any older than 7 or 8 years old, I had a dream. And in that dream, I was with a man. Of course, these people never have faces, but they're there with me. And this person takes me through a hallway. And when I get to the end of the hallway, he hands me a key. The key was the same size as me. So as an 8-year-old child, that key, when I put it down on the ground, was the same size as me. And he said, "This is your key. Take it and go into the room. And when you go in that room, everything that's in your room is yours." So I was very excited in the dream. And when I went, I realized there were doors on both sides of the hallway. And I said, "Which door?" Thinking he's going to lead me to my door with all the things that I needed. And he said to me, "You have to find that door. That's your job. It's your responsibility to find out which one of those doors that this key fits." I wrestled with that for 32 years, always wanting to understand what that meant. And finally, after all these years, it's finally beginning to make sense. Let's set that aside for now. Today, I'm going to talk about Africa, what we consider to be Africa today. And for many people who spend so much time in the last 2 or almost 3 years now of me doing YouTube, arguing that they're African or they're not African for one reason or the other, I stopped using the term. I stopped addressing people by saying, greetings, African people. Because Africa then has to become a state of mind. Not what I tell somebody, not what I wear on the outside. Because today, as I'm wearing my African clothes, it is not the clothing that is going to make me African. It is what's going on in my mind. The word Africa is a word that has been redefined for African people. And the question that I begin with today is, what's in a name? How valuable or important is a name? And I'm here to say that name is absolutely important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have name of countries, places, animal, things. And within all these categories of animal, place, animal, places, names of people and all that, there are always subsections or subcategories. If I am walking down the street and if I change my name from Jenniren to Susan, you could call me all you like. Even when I recognize a voice, I might not stop to look at you because I don't identify with that name. The name becomes you. And therefore, individuals who seek to change your name for whatever reason have to understand what it is in that name that is meaningful, that will create power and light in your life. When you name your children, be careful of what you're naming your children. What is the meaning of these names that you give to your children? They're absolutely important. They're very powerful, these names. But more importantly, when you identify and understand the power and the meaning behind these names, and you take that onto yourself and become that name, that's what determines life or death. And I'll go further in that. I will talk about that another day. So today, the name is very important to me for this conversation's sake. And so when we talk about Africa, Africa was renamed. That land, that continent was not Africa. It was called Khemet. I'm going to go to my notes because it's a lot for me to remember. Khemet was the kingdom of what we consider to be now Africa. And if you understand that we as Black people, and again, we're using the word Black because you know what that means. We as Black people now hear about Africa, and because we are not, that name was not an original name by our people, but were from other people who came and chose to change that name because they have ulterior motive for doing that. Whenever a place name is changed, it always represents something. Sometimes it marks the memories of individuals. Sometimes to change a name to make it become something that it's not. Or sometimes it's to claim that place as their own. Africa was renamed. Originally, Africa was called Khemet, that kingdom. Africa as we know it now doesn't have the appeal it once had. And in particular to our people, Africa means very little because of the negative stereotype that have been associated to Africa. Starvation, disease, famine, the dark continent, these negative association to the world's greatest civilization. Africa is the mother of all nation, philosophy, mathematical, theories, science, the pyramids, you name it, the greatest civilization. And yet the people who are from that continent, when you watch us around the world now, we are displaced, we're angry, we're filled with strife, there's chaos surrounding us because we cease from being Khemet and transform to Africans, the desolate, the weak, the powerless. That's the meaning of the new Africa that is named. Khemet is an ancient Egyptian word known as the Black Land, known today as Africa, as I said earlier, the greatest civilization on earth. As Black people, we are not taught that. To this day, we don't understand that the Greek philosophers and the European great that we hear about, Aristotle and, Newton, Plato, all these individuals gained their wisdom from this great kingdom of Egypt. It's also this Khemet, which is the Egyptian kingdom, the land of the great Pharaoh, rulers, not slaves. Out of the land of Khemet, and where we have our great kings and queens, come the spiritual, not religion, but the power of our spiritual awakening right here in Africa is called alchemy. It came through thought. who in our base idea is considered God. The word God comes from Europeans, not from Kemet, not from our people. God is not known to our people, but called Neter. And Neter was nature, spirits, the archetype of nature, the forces of nature. So within our spirituality, we understood that there were different forces at work that came together to create what we understand, what we know, and what empowered us as a people. Our contact with Greek people, our philosophers, resulted in sharing of information. The Egyptians shared the superior knowledge with individuals who lived in cages. The knowledge that they imparted and they shared with Greek philosophers became the tool that they used to become great. Not just the Greeks, but other Europeans as well, and Indians or Asian people, or great spirituality that we reject now. The Christianity that you embrace aspects of it comes from alchemy. In African spirituality, there are multiple forces of nature working together to create reality. Now look at this charge. Alchemy has its trinity as a foundational truth. What does the word trinity mean? When you think of trinity, you think of Christianity, where Christianity copied their ideas. Christianity was not first, but alchemy was. The principle or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of beliefs, behavior, for a chain of reasoning. So within our African spirituality, and let's go to the Kemet, that they don't want you to know about, the kingdom, the land of Black people. Their belief system started with three things in alchemical tradition. So here is how we break down. Here we hear with the Christianity, it talks about Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Well, here we talk about these three binding forces within our reasoning or our foundational truth is seeing sulfur. This symbolizes sulfur. Sulfur referring to the soul, our consciousness, our oil. Mercury then is a spirit. This is a symbolism for Mercury, the spirit and the mind. So the elements within alchemy has these different dimensions. As some people say, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. For us, it's sulfur being in the body. It's broken in these three parts: the soul, the mind, and the body. Body with being salt. Have you heard that we are the salt of the earth? That's where that came from. Body, structure, thoughts. Within this diagram, and sorry my camera isn't very good, so it's difficult for me to zone in here. But within this, if you break it down this way, you consider, this is like, just let's say this is man. The soul, the mind, and emotional will. That's what is considered to be the soul. And the spirit is our intuition, is our conscience, is our spirituality. Broken down here. To take it further, we can then look to say, what is the body? The body is a material structure that embodies or gives concrete reality to something abstract. This thing here that we call the body, the flesh, it's a house. Completely insignificant. It rots. It perishes. It disintegrates over time. But what we carry inside of us, based on our religion, as we call it, that word loosely, based on our tradition, our beliefs, based on alchemy, is that this flesh is insignificant. It's what we carry inside. It embodies or gives concrete reality to something abstract. Our mind, our spirit, therefore, is a mind. It's our mental activities generated in the mind, thought. It gets structured to create our reality. Our mind, an inherent faculty of consciousness. Inherent faculty of, within this mind, we're able to transmit or communicate with the energies that operate in force. So we hear about in Christianity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Well, that's not true for us in our traditional understanding of the universe. The Son is not S-O-N, it's S-U-N. The energies, if you look at so many religious texts or ideologies or whatever, you see a man with his arms stretched out. This is us. They use the cross. That comes from our tradition, from our ideas or ideology, the cross. And within our faith, let's call it that to loosen that word, you have these center points. You have four contact points that helps you to balance yourself. You have fire begins at the top and water at the bottom, and you have air and you have earth. You know that water, when come close to fire, what will happen? These 2 points will never meet because they don't agree. There has to be a centering. So the earth and the air operates in a way to balance those two energies in our bodies. I'll get into more detail with that another time. So the 3 principles then, our soul, which is sulfur, becomes consciousness. Our spirit, which is mercury, which is our mind, and salt, our body and our thought forms. We manifest everything in our life through our thought forms. When we have that understanding that the fire that we carry within us gets ignited, and therefore when you get to that level of consciousness, there is nothing that you cannot do. That level of consciousness breaks down every barrier, that connection to self and God. The idea of God must begin with the igniting of that power within you, the igniting of that flame. That flame, the purpose of that flame is to teach you, to bring you closer to truth, to bring you closer to power, true power. And so these ancient civilizations, after having contact with Khemet and our Egyptian God, learned some secrets that they kept to themselves and didn't want everyone to know. Because when you know the truth, you shall be powerful. When you know the truth, when you have the light within you, no one can lead you through darkness. For now, when you don't know the truth, you live in darkness and therefore is afraid. Every person must get within him or herself to ignite that fire, to know the truth. Because only with the truth can you become enlightened, can you overcome adversities in life. And adversities in life are not a bad thing, because the law of nature that exists always put man and nature at a kind of conflict. There is chaos all the time, always moving. And so in order for you to be in alignment with nature, to ignite the power that you carry within you, you have to be moving and shifting to keep this. And the only way you're moving and shifting is when experiences in your life cause you to be out of balance sometimes. And therefore, if you are seeking light, you always have to be searching, always try to move be one with light. Be one with truth. Be one with what you perceive to be God. So when you examine soul, spirit, and salt, all three, you then achieve soul actualization, and which causes you to return to the one thing, to the creation. Soul then becomes the primer material, the necessary thing to connect you, to ignite that fire within you, to bring you to that place where you understand that two become one, and one is connected, to the sun, the moon, the star, the air, the earth, fire. So how does consciousness relate to matter? Mercury, which is the mind, it generates matter. As I said before, soul and matter joins together by a bridge, which is Mercury. Thought, and we never said God, it was referred to as Netter, which is a masculine energy, and Mahat is a feminine. So, nowadays they might tell you that, woman is not as important as man is more powerful. Those two energies cannot exist without each other. We know that. The feminine energy is part of that creation. And nowadays people are telling you that this one is more important than that. They're balanced. Within our African culture and spirituality was always balancing up both of those things. In some European countries, women were seen as objects or subjects. They're not seen or seen as property. But it wasn't like that in our African tradition and in Khemet or in our kingdom. So Hermes, they considered to be the Greek god, took the teachings or esoteric traditions, they're called, based primarily upon the writings and knowledge, and labeled them as Hermetic principles. Hermetic principles. And if you do your research, you'll hear about these Hermetic principles. And if you're not careful, you might not even see the mention of Thoth, who is the author. It's the author. So why am I telling you all of this? Us people who live around the world in different places. Some of us have never been to Africa. Some of us will never go to Africa. But it doesn't change the fact that that continent carries the largest group of people that look like you and I. And even though history shows that the African person have always had, or persons have had to have traveled extensively. You see, this is where the question comes in. Oh, we can't be African, or we didn't come to America from the slave trade because we were always in America. All those different explanations, it doesn't really matter. The European doesn't deny his European heritage. The Asian does not deny their heritage. And therefore, we have to stop doing that. But the reason, and I understand, the reason why we deny our heritage is because the truth has been removed. The name have changed, and therefore we cannot see or know who we are or take pride in our African history or heritage, because that one African history that was given to us is negative. But it's one of the worst things that have happened to Black people. The history being taken away creates a kind of chaos in our lives until we can go back and reconnect, not just to the land physically, but the power now lies within us to connect spiritually. That is the only way we can free ourselves from that bondage, because the freedom of the mind is far more important than the physical body, because you can stay in jail. You can stay in the worst of circumstance of situation and be completely free. You don't see poverty. You don't feel poverty, because poverty is a state of mind. It's all matter. Everything is matter. If you understand the magic that is associated with matter, understanding the power that we carry, and even the very melanin in our skin, how it connects us to that power, that magical power that transforms, that transcends, that creates life. And not just life that we see, but things that we don't see, things that are formless. So you say, my mind told me this, No, not your mind, but those forms that are around you, matter that exist around you to lead you to this, to teach you this, to teach you that, to help you to understand, to let you know that instead of staying in the physical, because the physical is darkness, the spiritual lead you to the light. I'm going to do a series for you and help you to understand what is really happening to us as a people, and how it was necessary for our stories to be distorted, how it was necessary for us to be brought down to a path of darkness, how it was necessary to lead us away from the truth. Because if you understand the power of who you are, you cannot be controlled. And if you understand the light that you carry and how you're then powerful enough to connect to the light, and instead of turning on the gas and lighting that match to ignite it, no, it turns on naturally and it cannot be turned off. Our people perish because of lack of knowledge. Our people perish because they were misled and misguided. And there are times that I have felt resentment and felt scorn from my people. And then when I'm understanding, bringing myself, walking through this hallway, trying to find the door where this key will fit, truth came to me for years. Bit by bit, they made no sense. They made no sense until the pieces start falling together. They start making more sense. And I realized that I'm more powerful than I could ever have imagined. Not of myself, but they that guide me to truth. Not truth that anybody taught me, but just wake up with a word in my mind that I don't know. And I go in research. And when I find it, it leads me to other avenues of truth. That tells me I am powerful and so are you. That tells you that until the black man and woman understands the power that they carry and the lies that they have been told and the shame that they feel or carry inside their mind, until they're able to release that, to say that not because we're African, we are greater than other people, but that we had the truth, the foundational truth that would lead us to freedom. And individuals were taught this, were introduced to this. They took it for themselves. They waged war with my people. But now we wage war with ourselves. And it's because we don't know who we are. And nobody is going to tell you, no one is going to teach you how to be great. The powerful will never teach the powerless how to take power from them. But in a case where all human being lives and exists in this world of chaos and trauma, where the equilibrium is unbalanced, but is a law of nature. Until you understand the law of nature and come in alignment with the law of nature, you cannot overcome these things. Those things are there to get motion, to get matter, to fall in alignment with what is considered to be creator or the creative elements in this earth. Do you understand that? But some people, they know the truth. There are a few persons who live even now that understand this knowledge, that understand that wisdom, enlightenment is the greatest power that you could hold. For once you have wisdom, all things fall at your feet. You are in control of everything, and the motions in life that keep you moving, they're only there to strengthen you and to lead you down other pathways of further truth and power. Oh, greatness is not outward, it's inward, inside to ignite the light. Whatever is above is below. It said that in the Our Father prayer, as it was in the beginning, it shall be unto the end. So whatever happened then, whatever our people knew, the history that they knew, and the secrets that they knew in the kingdom, it is still here. What you can bind on earth is already bound in heaven. And what you loose in heaven, you can lose on earth. This is heaven, And earth is a term used for Europeans or Christian ideologies. But what we understand as the sun and the earth connecting us as people, light and power, earth and air working together to create balance within human beings. Understanding our place in that, always seeking, always trying to find out, listening, waiting for instructions, being silent. And sometimes when we're angry, the anger works to propel or keep, dangerous spirits away from you. But there are also times when you have to understand that silence is that moment when you stay still and you listen and you learn. I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to come back to tell you how not understanding your spirituality, not understanding who you are as people born in our race with a history that many want you to forget or not at least know, because it's not about forgetting, because they have done things and put things in place to cancel that out. And I tried to have a conversation with my husband yesterday where we were both talking and something hit me. And I'm saying to myself, when you are, as a person of color or black person, whoever you are, when you think of Africa, you think with some shame. And those of us that are foreparents, at least, that were taken in the transatlantic slave trade and brought to the different places in Africa and kept in bondage, after a while forgot their memories. The ancestral memories were there. And so we still dance the same way. We can't move her. We can't lose our rhythm. We can't. It's like the baby can move without even thinking. Those ancestral rhythms are still there, which will allow us to communicate with the light, with the flame within us. But being in captivity and being in bondage, we then start to say, well, on the plantation, we are in bondage. But after the slave is severely beaten to the point where they're broken, and then they're put to sit around a table with all kinds of delicacies to eat from the table of the master, you start to think to yourself, well, he's not that bad. He might have beat me yesterday, but look at how I'm feeding today. When the person, instead of trying to get into who you are, understand the tradition and the culture of our foreparents, the traditions that kept us, strong and powerful, we start saying, well, we used to make our fire, the wood fire, and cook our food that was healthier for us, that, was allowing us to get the true nutrients from the earth, from the food that we planted ourselves and then eat. But we say, well, the electric stove is better. It makes our life easier. We get to eat the packaged foods. Now, it's not that bad. After a while, you start to justify your bondage. You start to make sense of it. You start to make peace with it. And the more you do that, is the more you lose sight. Many of our young people now have no concept of who they are. And most of Black people around the world, the majority, has no true essence of the power that they carry, and how if they were able to connect with their divine self, nobody could control you. No one could beat you. And it's not just the African, it's all human being. If they ever understood that secret and knew how to center his or her self, you would be so powerful. You would be feared. Be blessed, everyone.